The Supreme Council of the Irish Republic of Ireland is in session. The first item, the respected Lord Mayor, Willie Foster, she lit the candle on behalf of the volunteers and all who took part in our independence. And the first item is always the right and welfare of the sovereign citizens. What we're celebrating today is our sovereignty. And all Irish people became sovereign citizens here in 1919 at 12 noon. This is the private session. And the 32 county election from Vaughan's Hotel in Parnell Square in Dublin established the sovereignty of the 32 counties and the democratically elected TDs to go there. That's our sovereignty. And we implemented the 1916 proclamation exactly and verbatim as it says in the 1916 proclamation. So I would like to ask Lord Mayor to read the 1916 proclamation.
Good morning and welcome to the Mansion House. To the people of Ireland, Irish men and Irish women, in the name of God and of the dead generations from which you received the old tradition of nationhood, Ireland, through us, summons her children to her flag and strikes for her freedom. Having organised and claimed her manhood through her secret revolutionary organisation, the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and through her open military organisations, the Irish Volunteers and the Irish Citizen Army, having patiently perfected her discipline, having resolutely waited for the right moment to reveal itself, she now seizes that moment, and supported by her exiled children in America, and by gallant allies in Europe, but relying in the first on her own strength, she strikes in full confidence of victory. We declare the right of the people of Ireland to the ownership of Ireland, and to the unfettered control of Irish destinies, to be sovereign and indivisible. The long usurpation of that right by foreign people and government has not extinguished the right, nor can it ever be extinguished, except by the destruction of the Irish people. In every generation, the Irish people have asserted their right to national freedom and sovereignty. 6 times during the past 300 years, they have asserted it in arms. Standing on that fundamental right, and again asserting it in arms, in the face of the world, we hereby proclaim the Irish Republic as a sovereign independent state, and we pledge our lives and the lives of our comrades in arms to the cause of its freedom, of its welfare, and its exaltation among the nations. The Irish Republic is entitled to, and hereby claims, the allegiance of every Irish man and Irish woman. The Irish Republic guarantees religious and civil liberty, equal rights and equal opportunities to all its citizens, and declares its resolve to pursue the happiness and prosperity of the whole nation and all its parts, cherishing all of the children of the nation equally, and oblivious of the differences carefully fostered by an alien government which have divided a minority from the majority in the past. Until our arms have brought the opportune moment for the establishment of a permanent national government, representative of the whole people of Ireland, and elected by the suffrages of all her men and women, the provisional government, hereby constituted, will administer the civil and military affairs of the Republic in trust for the people. We place the cause of the Irish Republic under the protection of the Most High God, whose blessing we invoke upon our arms, and we pray that no one who serves that cause will dishonour it by cowardice, inhumanity, or crime. In the supreme hour, the Irish nation must, by its valour and discipline, and by the readiness of its children to sacrifice themselves for the common good, prove itself worthy of the august destiny to which it is called.
I now have to turn this open sea. I, William James Maguire, elevated and turned from this centre of Mansion House, Dublin, the sovereign seal of Dáil Éireann, Anno Domini, a Christian symbol and ethos, from the rising sun to the setting sun, from north to south and from east to west, and from wrong to right, and from evil to good, and from pagan to Christian to sovereign, as in the 1916 proclamation. And I claim sovereignty over all elements, earth, air, fire and water, and all therein and thereof, on behalf of the sovereign citizens and the sovereign Republic of Éire, and its elected reason, signed and sealed on this day, the 21st of January, Anno Domini 2010, under the sovereign seal of the sovereign Republic of Éire, William James Maguire, President of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, President of the Sovereign Republic of Éire, Keeper of the Sovereign Seals of the Sovereign Republic of Éire. So I turn from the rising sun to the setting sun, from north to south, and from east to west, and from sovereign show the sovereign seal, Anno Domini 2010. That's what makes everything legal, valid and bona fides. It's the Christian symbol and ethos, Anno Domini 2010. That's on your title deeds, your house, your land. That's what the volunteers, 8th String IV. That's what the War of Independence was. Put that up in the Mansion House for the first Dáil Éireann. I now call on Mr. Seamus O'Sullivan, who is deputising for the town caller, who has refused to turn up today and commemorate our 91st anniversary. It is mandatory that he does so. This is Dáil Éireann, this is the sovereignty, and he will have sovereignty for the rest of the year. All licences are only valid from the 21st of January to the 20th of January each and every year. You can't run Dáil Éireann without a licence, and both houses of the Oireachtas are not properly constituted. So I'll ask James to read the Declaration of Independence.
Declaration of Independence. Whereas the Irish people is by right a free people, and whereas for 700 years the Irish people has never ceased to repudiate and has repeatedly protested in arms against foreign usurpation, and whereas English rule in this country is and always has been based upon force and fraud and maintained by military occupation against the declared will of the people, and whereas the Irish Republic was proclaimed in Dublin on Easter week 1916 by the Irish Republican Army acting on behalf of the Irish people, and whereas the Irish people are resolved to secure and maintain its complete independence in order to promote the common weal, to re-establish justice, to provide for future defence, to ensure peace at home and goodwill with all nations, and to constitute a national policy based upon the people's will, with equal right and equal opportunity for each citizen. And whereas at the threshold of a new era in history, the Irish electorate has in the general election of December 1918 seized the first opportunity to declare by an overwhelming majority its firm allegiance to the Irish Republic. Now therefore we, the elected representatives of the ancient Irish people, in national parliament assembled, do in the name of the Irish nation ratify the establishment of the Irish Republic and pledge ourselves and our people to make this declaration effective by every means at our command. We ordain that the elected representatives of the Irish people alone have power to make laws binding on the people of Ireland, and that the Irish Parliament is the only Parliament to which that people will give its allegiance. We solemnly declare foreign government in Ireland to be an invasion of our national right, which we will never tolerate, and we demand the evacuation of our country by the English garrison. We claim for our national independence the recognition and support of every free nation in the world, and we proclaim that independence to be a condition precedent to international peace hereafter. In the name of the Irish people, we humbly commit our destiny to Almighty God, who gave our fathers the courage and determination to persevere through long centuries of ruthless tyranny, and strong in the justice of the cause which they have handed down to us. We ask the divine blessing on this, the last stage of the struggle we have pledged ourselves to carry through to freedom.
I call on Mr. Harry O'Reilly, who is deputising for the Chief Justice, Mr. John Murray, to read the first sovereign constitution.
The Constitution of Dáil Éireann, Dáil Éireann, more commonly known as the Dáil Constitution, is the Constitution of the 1919-22 Irish Republic. It was adopted by the first Dáil at the first meeting on the 21st of January 1919 and theoretically remained in force for 4 years. As adopted, it consisted of only 5 short articles. Article 1 declared that the Dáil had full power to legislate and would consist of representatives elected in elections conducted by the British government. For the exercise of executive power, it created a cabinet answerable to the Dáil called the Oireachtas, or Ministry, headed by the Prime Minister called Príomh Eire. In practice, also known as the President of Dáil Éireann. The Constitution made no reference to the judiciary, but this did not prevent the Dáil from establishing a system of Dáil courts. The final article of the Constitution declared that it was intended to be a provisional document, in the sense that it was subject to amendment. As adopted, the Constitution came on to only around 370 words. In comparison, the modern Constitution of Ireland has approximately 16,000 words. Overall, the structure of the document was roughly as follows. Article 1, Dáil Éireann. Article 2, Ministry. Article 3, Chairman of the Dáil. Article 4, Finance. And Article 5, Amendments.
Thank you. I would like to call on the Indian representative to tell us about President Geary, the fourth President of India. He was a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, he was also a member of Sinn Féin, and he was a very esteemed member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood.
On this very solemn occasion of the 91st commemoration of Sovereign Republic of Dáil and War of Independence, I will recall the association of one of the leading lights of Indian politics, Mr. V.V. Geary, who was a member of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, who stays here at UCD. And no wonder that his involvement with the Irish Republican Brotherhood and the ideas that he stood for and learned from others made him to reach the level of the president of the country, a big country like India, who became republic on the 60 years ago. Incidentally, this year on the 26th of January, India is going to celebrate the 60th anniversary of the Republic of India. And we strongly recall this V.V. Geary's association with Irish Republic, Irish Republican Brotherhood, and the days that he spent here, and his involvement. And these leakages, along with so many others, are the binding forces of the relation between India and Ireland today.
Thank you very much. I've been asked to do something on the Trinity and the Sovereign Seal, and that's the Trinity. It's it's Anno Domini 2009. You see it up on behind you on that. We did it for the 150th anniversary of the Irish Republican Brotherhood. The Irish Republican Brotherhood owned the Trinity, the Sovereign Seal and the Heart, Dáil Éireann, the GAA, Sam Maguire, the Neil McCarthy and the GAA medal. They are Irish Republican Brotherhood. And unfortunately in 2008, on the 4th of September, the GAA removed the Sovereign Seal and Éire from the medal. They had no right to do that. That's a sacred symbol to the Irish people. It's 100 years old, that medal this year, and that was your proof that you won that. It was awarded for the All-Ireland Senior and Hurling Football Championship Final, and that was the proof for 100 years that you played in that and was awarded. It's the highest accolade that any country can give, is to give their Sovereign Seal to a player in recognition of his sporting achievements. And I don't know of any other country in the world that does that. And I think it was an absolute scandal for the GAA to take that off. They have no right to take it off. McKenny didn't win 4 in a row, they won 2, because that is mandatory to have that awarded, to win an All-Ireland medal. And either did Tyrone, and neither did Kerry last year. Until those medals are awarded and the Sovereign Seal are put back, there was no All-Ireland Senior or Hurling Football Championship for those years. It's very important that the GAA, they didn't tell anybody of doing that. It's a democratic organisation. That was the backbone of our independence, and the Irish Republican Brotherhood who set up that. We come to the Trinity is the Sovereign Seal. That is the Sovereign Seal. It's the Christian symbol in ethos, but it's to do with, it's pre-Roman Catholicism. It's to do with the sun, which grows all our food and our biomass, the reflection of the sun, and the moonship, which controls all the cycles of life and all the tide. And all that, the planet Earth is dark, but it's the sun, the moon and the stars that give us the light on planet Earth to grow our food and develop our civilization. So I'll just take these and show you what the top of it is. That's the curragh, symbol of the curragh, and it's carrying the sonship from the rising sun to the setting sun, which is there. It goes underneath the darkness of men's intellect. Men didn't know where the sun went to. He thought the world was circular and flat. But this is the eye. You tread the eye of the back with knowledge. You know what that is because it's your intellect that tells you. You take the string from the harp and you make the circle with the string. You put down your own stick in the centre and you use your string. And that string then makes the circle. When you stand in that circle, you know where the sun comes up from the left-hand side, so you know that's east. That's 12 noon, and you know that's west, so you know that north is behind you. That's the only way they had of determining where they were. That is also that's your measuring tape, your plumb line, and your straight edge. And that's and if you notice on that's how you build. That hangs from the back. You see that string that's on that? You take the string from the harp and you make your circle. Once you're in that, you know where you are. That's the hook that's on that. The scales of justice hang on that. There's the astrolabe, which is the origin of the compass, hangs from the back of that to navigate. That's what my ancestor, Patrick McGuire, taught Christopher Columbus, how to navigate the Atlantic Ocean. And that, you can see it on that. That's a very, and of course that was the Bronze Age. But in Lochgar, the clock in Clorship is 7,000 years old. You say that's the Bronze Age. And the back of that would be the reflection, is the mirror. So you have your string, and then once you have your string, you can measure. It's your measuring tape, your plumb line, divided in two. That's how the pyramids of Egypt were built. Your straight edge, you know your pendulum. So all that comes from that. How man learned to read between the strings. It's written in Om. The covenant between God and man is written in Om. And that's hieroglyphics between the strings. That's Egyptian. That's Noah's Ark, how you put the keel on the ship for the Atlantic Ocean. We said that was the carrying the sun ship. That's the arc of the sky. If you look at that, to make a map in the olden days, you see the map and the globe, and that's how Galileo and Copernicus, they tied the string on the harp, and they followed the sun, from the rising sun to the setting sun, and of course it went round and made a complete circle. So when you turned it that way, and you turned it with latitude and longitude. You also had the grid and the graph, and this is how you use it. All Celtic designs. If you look, and you see them to the left. You see them? And that is all our Celtic designs. That's where they come from. And how you build your city, you know, and how you construct your maps. That is what Patrick McGuire was teaching. He was asked to do so by Ferdinand and Isabella. That's how they make the maps. Each of those squares. You see the maps, and you see on that, which I showed you. You see the arc. That is the arc, and there's the latitude and longitude. So that's how man has developed over the years. How man learned to weave. That's your loom. And across the loom you put the string, so you have cloth, you have sail. Everywhere you turn that, you put it upside down. That's the pyramids of Egypt. You know that everywhere you turn, all the information and knowledge is in that for our civilization. If you want to construct a wheel, you take the eye. This time you don't tread the eye with string. You tread the eye with the axle, and that's the feathers of the wheel. You don't use the strings, you use the spokes. So that's how you construct your wheel, so man control the world. You can see it on that. Now this is important, that's the sun box and the sound box. And we've heard Nisha on the harp, and that's the sound box, but that's also the sun box, which is the first telescope for looking at the sun and the moon and the planet Earth. So we have a wonderful instrument, and it shouldn't be lost. All Rome was built with that information and knowledge. And in 1155 it was given to Pope Adrian IV, the only English Pope, gave it to Henry II. And you'll see down there one of those maps there, and then you'll see where it caused the 100 Years' War with the fleur-de-lis of France. They went to war for 100 years with England, and England had to take off the fleur-de-lis, but our sovereign seal is still up on it. And that's just to build their empire. And you'll see Cromwell has it up at his, because when they came in to conquer, they always took what the people had to control them. And that's what he took, and it's up there in his coat of arms. You'll see it on that. And you'll see where he broke the eye. That's the eye. That's knowledge, and that's information. It's light, how you look at the telescope, how we look at today. And he broke that so that Irish people would never know where they came from or where they're going to. But we have it and we know. So that is basically, it's written in Ogham, and Ogham is the first letter of all the native woodland trees. And it represents that. The tricolour, of course, sits on that today. And that now down in the forecourts, they have the sovereign seal up. The sovereign seal, the psaltery, the Book of Psalms is the psalter, and the psaltery is the instrument that accompanies the Book of Psalms, which was a smaller type of part than that. There was no organ for playing; that was strummed. So that is it. That has to be turned. I have to turn that from one side to the other. But with that, you put it up to the mirror, and you see the harp. And everybody can see the harp on the back of that. The harp is our national emblem. The sovereign seal with 12 strings, the Christian symbol in it, Anno Domini 2010, is what makes everything legal, valid, and bona fides. It's on your title deeds, your house, your land, your tax, your driving license, your passport. You have to have it. And you either have sovereignty or you don't have it. You have to use your sovereignty. And this is why this day is so important. We claim our sovereignty here every year where it was done. We can trace it back to here for 91 years. And no one can point the finger that we don't have sovereignty. Unfortunately, I have to say about our politicians, that they don't commemorate it. I don't know why, but anyway, they don't do it. I don't think it's an awful ceremony, I think you'll agree. But it is very interesting how every civilization has used that. It comes, the Trinity, which is the shamrock, is the Trinity, and you'll see the flower is the gold, the green and the gold, which is the Fenian Brotherhood, the sister organisation of the Irish Republican Brotherhood, and the green, white and orange, which is the green is the Easter lily, and the green is the stem, the white is the petal, and the orange is the stem, and it's the lily of the Nile. So that goes back to and that's for the Garden of Remembrance, which we always go to on this day, and we say a prayer for all the volunteers and all the people, for everybody. We don't make any distinctions. We pray for everybody. And it's a day of celebration, and I'm sure you're still listening to me. So what I'd like to do is to thank the Lord Mayor very much, and I'd like to thank Seamus O'Sullivan for reading the Declaration, and Mr. Harry O'Reilly for reading the Sovereign Constitution, our first one, and our harpist, Mr. Kelly, who comes here and does that every year. We're all volunteers, and just to commemorate it for those people who gave their lives for us, and that sovereign seal up here. I did ask that maybe up on that, over the fireplace, that the Trinity again would be put back here as it was the first day. The protocol is that the sovereign seal, the tricolour on the Ogham sticker pole, and the harp of the psaltery, they would be put back here. The protocol for today is the sovereign seal is carried and the tricolour to Dáil Éireann, and the harp is carried to Senet Éireann. That's the Trinity. That's what we're dedicated to. The shamrock, you can see those, the St. Patrick's Day badges. There you see the green and gold, which is the Fenian Brotherhood, and the green, white and orange, which is the Irish Republican Brotherhood. And that protocol is for that both houses of the Oireachtas are properly constituted, and that the Dáil Éireann courts are properly constituted. And today is the day Now, what it means is if the teacher who didn't turn up and the Lord Mayor very kindly deputised for him, but it means that he can't use the sovereign seal as a Dáil Éireann for 12 months. Either can become caller or either can the Chief Justice, so the courts are not properly constituted. The Irish citizens have an absolute right to be governed by a sovereign government and have the courts and both houses of the office properly constituted. And unfortunately they're not, and I don't know why. You have to ask them that question. But we do our bit anyway. There's the Constitution. We're governed by that sovereign Constitution which Harry read. That's the sovereign seal which I'm telling you about. You put that up to the mirror, you see the heart of the sovereign. And the first item inside here is the Trinity. And there's your Trinity. And we go then to the state. The name of the state is Éire, and that's what's on the Sovereign Republic of Éire. That's what we are. Ireland is a sovereign, independent, democratic state. Where's your sovereignty? You know, democracy is one thing, elected politician is one thing, but he has to comply with that. Everybody has to comply with that. You have a sovereign right to go into court and have your constitutional rights vindicated. And that's what we do there. The judges have to uphold the Constitution. MPs and senators and civil servants of Dáil Éireann have to uphold that Constitution. If they don't, 13 strings, that is the symbol of Breton law, and is over the forecourts, 13 strings. We put up 12 here 91 years ago. And the 13 strings is the betrayal of Judas and the execution. And that's your punishment for desecrating the sovereign seal or not complying with the Constitution. You know, all those are there. So that's it. I thank you very much for everybody for coming. We have a terrific audience this year, and I hope you enjoyed it. I believe there's a cup of coffee first, and the food is
No,